What do you think the current state of the union is, or state of the media is? And what are, kind of some of the key broken things to fix?
One of the things that I find really interesting is, I have gone down in my media business to be smaller, right? I've shrunk myself, and in shrinking myself, I do a lot better, right? And so there's all these smaller organizations. They're kind of like startups that are very nimble, whether it's Casey Newton at Platformer. He does great. Let me just tell you, he does great economically, and he does great from a content perspective, right? He's making stuff the audience wants. We're like a lot of little restaurants that are really popular, right? But I don't ever see me being a restaurant chain. I don't want to get bigger, essentially. And so there's a lot of fascinating stuff being done on the small scale that is economically viable, makes a good living for people, is super good in terms of content. That's doing great. And you see those experiments all over the place, whether it's the information, whether it's, they stay in business because they make money, and the audience grows and people like them. It also doesn't have to get that big to do really well, right? It can stay, this small, very successful restaurant, essentially. There's one in San Francisco that I love called Anchor Bar, right in the Castro. And it just is always going to be there. It only has this many seats, and it's always excellent, and it's going to be there forever it wants to be, I suspect. And so that's how there's a lot of that happening, and that's exciting. And some of it's really cool. Puck is another one that focuses on power, of course. So that's got an audience. But there's all kinds of small ones. Heather Cox Richardson, she makes bank like you can't believe.
She's incredible
with her her history lessons. Essentially, it's the one lady who lives in Maine and types away. I think she's making $5 million in revenue. It's like that's a good business, And she has like 2 people doing it or whatever. So you can see the economics of that are great. Then there's the very big organizations. And the very biggest is essentially the New York Times, which is not a very big company. Like we keep saying, oh, look at the success of the Times. Well, one, it makes all its traffic and money on cooking and Wordle or games and things like that. And the news does fine. It does well and it's growing, but not like those other parts of it. So I like what they've done there. What they've added different things on, which makes it wide ranging. But if you look at their profits, they're not that profitable. They're profitable, which is great. And they're solidly profitable, but they're not that profitable. And the way that newspapers used to be, like minting money. And their revenues are, $2.4 billion. That's pretty small when you think about it. That's one of the things I think about is like, that's the biggest and most successful. And I'm leaving out the Disneys and those people in the world because they've got their own unique challenges. And I'm not in that business. I'm not in the entertainment business. But you're not going to have very many New York Timeses, right? There's not going to be that many viable businesses. Facebook or Meta and Alphabet or Google, and essentially Google and Facebook own digital advertising. And look at Facebook's enormous surge in stock price. They're hitting on all cylinders. They own digital advertising, and AI is going to help them enormously make that they've bypassed the Apple problem they had with that. And so the New York Times is a drop in the bucket to them. And so who is going to be big? I have a contract with CNN, which is interesting, but their business is challenged, to say the least. So they've got to change. I was looking at the one story about all the different salaries of the anchors there. And I'm like, how is it that they deserve this money if they don't make it? Like I know every dollar I make and what I'm owed, right? I just, not just CNN anchors, all of them, the whole TV business is really out of whack. Costs and revenues are out of whack. And so, and the audience is declining because they're not making stuff people want necessarily. So what is it that people want? You can do really well on the small scale, but not so much on the big scale.